first guest tonight is a best-selling author and Emmy-winning host of All In with Chris Hayes, which airs weeknights at 8 on MSNBC. He also hosts the podcast, Why Is This Happening? Please welcome back to the show our good friend Chris Hayes, everybody.
It's great to be here.
It's also, this is used to happen more, I feel like, with the previous guy in office, but news breaks during the day. And I'm very lucky to have a newsman here with us because news just broke. The Trump Organization was found guilty on all 17 counts of tax. Hey! Do you know how hard it is to do your taxes? They get it right on every form.
They just like justice. Good. Yes, all 17 counts. I mean, I think it was a pretty open and shut case. Like,
it did seem pretty open.
They had all the documents. It clearly, I mean, basically what it amounted to was they engineered a bunch of ways to pay benefits and perks to the CFO, Alan Weisselberg, that they were not recording as taxes. And again, this is one of those, like, you know, cutting corners kind of things that just clearly illegal.
Yep.
That anyone that is like working with a lawyer, an accountant, or has like a sense of integrity is like, no, you don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, you report your taxes.
Yeah.
But that does not apply to the Trump org, obviously.
Yeah.
As now has been proven by found by a jury.
We should stress, this is not, Donald Trump has not been found guilty of anything. This is the Trump Organization.
No, that's right. I was going to make a joke that the jury of the peers was like, I guess, other real estate companies in New York.
Yeah.
Were like sitting in the jury box. Yes, this was the very rare and rarely seen criminal trial of a corporation, which is the Trump org.
Which I would imagine that based on the news of the day, Trump either says he has everything to do with or nothing to do with.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Today might be a day where he's like, I barely heard of it.
It's another Trump. Yeah.
It could be a different
Might be
Trump.
Don Jr.'s company.
So that is interesting. Obviously, there'll be a lot to unpack about that. Today, of course, the reason we were happy to have you is it's the end of the midterms. Tonight is the Georgia runoff. This is a fascinating race. Where do you see it? Based on the outcome, what are you going to glean from it?
I mean, I think there's two big, one is, will Georgians have like a extremely competent and impressive U.S. senator?
Yeah.
Or will they have Herschel Walker?
Yeah.
like, you know, and I don't say that as any kind of ideological judgment. It's just that Herschel Walker is the nominee to be the senator of Georgia because he was on Celebrity Apprentice.
Yes.
And because at a certain point, people were talking about the Georgia election, and Donald Trump was like, I know someone from Georgia.
Yeah.
Herschel Walker is from Georgia. And literally the Republican establishment of Georgia was like, no, he lives in Dallas. He's lived in Dallas for 20 years, and Trump was like, no, that's Herschel Walker.
Right, because Donald Trump, I think, it's very easy to connect the dots that he remembered Herschel Walker as a Georgia football player, excellent one, and then knew him as a USFL guy.
And then he was on Celebrity Apprentice.
He was on Celebrity Apprentice. So those are really not a lot of dots.
Those are the three qualifications for him to be the senator. And so there's a real question of, it is one of all the races I've ever covered, one of the starkest juxtapositions.
Of just candidate quality.
Candidate quality.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I think really is, after a brutal midterms for Donald Trump's political brand, for candidates associated with him and handpicked by him, I mean, he will have managed, if Warnock pulls this off, to basically have cost Georgia 3 Senate seats in 2 years.
Yeah.
Which I think is not going to be helpful for him in the case that he's trying to build to run for president again.
And it should be noted that the governor of Georgia, the Republican governor of Georgia, won his race easily.
Yes.
This is not a state that is swinging wildly to become a blue state.
No, in fact, if you look at some of the other states, like, for instance, Pennsylvania and Arizona, and Michigan particularly, like, they seem to move more in the Democrats' direction down the ticket line. Georgia kind of swung back. The big outlier is Raphael Warnock against Herschel Walker. And the reason is that Herschel Walker has no business being a U.S. senator.
Yeah.
And enough marginal voters in Georgia were aware of that to give Warnock the advantage. The first time around, we'll see if that holds tonight.
It will be an interesting night as we see those come in. You talk about, is the impact of Donald Trump and the Republican Party waning? It definitely seems like things are not going as well as they have in the past, obviously. But I still don't see how he doesn't have a massive amount of control over the Republican Party because of his base.
Oh, he definitely has a massive amount of control. I mean, I think two things are true. One is that he is still the de facto leader of the party. Two, that he's as politically weak as he's been basically since he came down the escalator in 2015. And, you know, I think if the last 5 years...
It is funny that that's a true thing, but also really funny. Yes. Everybody was like, wait, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, that's what he did.
True. That was actually...
That's what he did. Literally, it's so funny, too, instead of, like, elevating to meet us, he was like, I shall come down to you.
Yes. In, like, the lobby. That was the other part of it.
Yeah.
Like,
and we were like, ha, you goon, and then he was president.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I shortened it up. I sort of condensed it, but
those are the main
happened.
parts of the story.
It was like he came down, we all laughed, and then he was president for 4 years. He did the full 4.
That's exactly what happened. And because of that, I think like it's always so risky to draw some straight line. You know, some trend is happening and just draw it out into the future. And I think again, the last 5 years has taught us like between Donald Trump and like COVID, like you never know what's going to happen. I have no idea what the future will bring. He might be very strong. Right now, he is very weak. And the reason he's weak isn't because, you know, people are morally appalled by the fact that he's like dining with white nationalists and anti-Semites. It's because he's a loser and he keeps losing and he keeps screwing things up for them.
Yes.
And they don't like that. And they want to be rid of it, but they're not quite sure how to be rid of it.
Well, one thing I want to say is, you know, I think a lot of candidates try to follow the Trump playbook. And this will seem insincere as I say it, but I do mean it. I do think it's harder to be Donald Trump than it looks.
Absolutely.
I think that he has a unique combination of skills that if other people try it, it just seems weirdly inauthentic. And with him, you're like, that's exactly who he is.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I think the shtick he has is his shtick. Mm-hmm. And no one else can really do that shtick. Even when they try to do it, it doesn't work, A. B, it's hard to be, I don't want to remote diagnose the man, but like, if you have like a fake sociopath and a real sociopath going against each other, like the real sociopath has a real advantage. and I do think that like it's genuinely difficult for most people to be as essentially sociopathic as he is.
Yeah.
So I think that shtick doesn't work. And then, I mean, and then you see it with everyone else just comes off as creeps and weirdos. Like the Blake Masters.
Yes, this is in Arizona.
It's Arizona. You know, he had this 2-minute video of him shooting, you see this?
Yeah.
Shooting the gun with the silencer.
Uh-huh.
Just be like, out there being like, silencers get a bad rap, man. It's like, whoa, buddy. Like, I don't know what you're doing or why you're running for office on this platform, but all of the sort of reactions people had to Trump, the fundamental thing I think to remember is, in almost like the original ancient Greek meaning of the word, he has charisma.
He really
does have charisma. And charisma's a hard thing to fake, and not everyone has it. And I actually think even if you go back and look at tape of him in 2015, 2016, that version of him had a lot more charisma than the version now.
Yeah.
Like, significantly more. And that's a sui generis thing. It's hard to bottle, it's hard to replicate.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch him try to get it back. I have a million more questions for you. Stick around. We'll be right back with more from Chris Hayes.